Hello, everyone. This is Sadhana Alangar, HL7's Director of Education. Welcome to this presentation on clinical and claims data transformation utilizing FHIR bulk data. Ricky Sahu, the CEO of OneUp Health, is here. Ricky, if you're ready, take it away.
Yep. Hey, guys. Nice to meet you all virtually. I'm sure there are a lot of people that are on this. I saw that, I've spoken with before, so good to see you again. And what I wanted to share today was how FHIR bulk data is really helping us transform the combination of claims and clinical data in the industry. And what we've seen, especially through these new regulations in the United States over the past couple of years, is that finally we have this world where clinical and claims data are, they're coming together in this singular format of FHIR. And the use cases that they're enabling really span everything from individual patient at a time to full population level use cases where bulk data becomes really interesting. So I'm going to go and just kind of share a little bit about OneUp for those of you who are not familiar, and then jump into the conversation. So, and feel free to ask any questions. I have the application open to make sure I see your questions as you ask them. So yeah, please do ask. We can make this more interactive. And I'll also leave some time at the end for any questions that we may not have gotten to. So yeah, basically what we're doing at OneUp Health is we're helping enable connectivity and compute on FHIR data. And we're connected to thousands of health systems, meaning provider organizations that have patient or population level FHIR APIs, either at the individual patient level or via bulk at the entire population level. And then there are hundreds of companies using our APIs to basically build all kinds of applications in the industry, again, from the patient level to the population level. We're getting a significant amount of usage for thousands of transactions a second, and have won a bunch of awards. And we have, customers from payers to providers to pharma, government, and also life insurance companies using us. So pretty deep in the space, and have a really good understanding of what the requirements for both technical and business are needed in the space. So really what I wanted to talk about is that, again, this is the first time claims and clinical data is coming together. And that is enabling all kinds of use cases that were not possible before. And really what we're seeing is that people who, these health plans and health systems and apps that want to work with claims and clinical data don't just want to work with them in, their silos. The power really comes from bringing them together, because then you can do things like prior auth, or you can do things like, identifying at-risk patient populations, or actually affect change by building analytics to identify these individuals and then recommend to providers, those individuals that you may want to take more care or action on. So just for those who might be a little bit fresher in the space, the clinical data is all the data that's created at the provider, it's the patient, but also lab observations, procedures, vital signs, allergy intolerances, conditions, etc. And the claim side is the financial set of data, what information is being used to effectively pay for the care. So you get things like explanation of benefit, coverage that describes what type of plan you're on, as well as the networks of providers and payers, providers and other organizations, facilities that are, paid for by the health plans. So again, we're seeing all this data come together, and we're seeing it come together from disparate sources in the industry. So for example, like the clinical data was enabled to provide patient access to any app of the patient's choice under new regulations Meaningful Use 3, which kind of span from 2017 to 2020. Just recently, and they're kind of being bolstered by these new requirements in the United States. Those are the Mass Generals, the NYU Langones, et cetera. United, I guess Kaiser is a little bit of both, and United might be a little bit of both too. But like all those health systems across the United States, from 2 doctors to entire organizations with thousands of people on staff. And then the claims data is just becoming available this July. And some health plans already have made this available, but others are starting to as their regulations require it. And that's where you get the Aetnas, the Humanas, Oscar, Cigna, et cetera. And what that is doing is it's again creating FHIR data from all this claims information that was in existence, but making it more computable for applications, especially in this world where the clinical data is already FHIR. So you're getting entire populations effectively connected to these applications that have either already been built or are being built in the industry to support data exchange and interoperability. And what applications we're seeing is those individual applications where a patient might consent to his or her own data to a specific app like Apple Health, for example, where you want to bring in your clinical data, your claims data from a bunch of different organizations. Maybe you're transitioning from one provider and payer to another provider and another payer, and you want to have this continuity of data on your side. That's one big use case. Or other applications that want to do analytics on this data as well. And then finally, we also have the population level use cases where developers can basically build applications and analytics on FHIR APIs, extract entire bulk exports, but then also run pop health analytics on SQL interfaces. So I think that's really the interesting part here, and we're just I'll go ahead and jump into that. So one of the ways that we are integrating data from these disparate sources is we're using a tool called Nifi, where we build processors for all kinds of different data formats, whether it's like CCDA or other proprietary data feeds, or there may be certain vendors in the industry that have a specific format that a bunch of payers are interacting with. So for those sorts of organizations, we are really enabling these processors to take that data, transform it into FHIR, and make it available via bulk interfaces, but also in the kind of the process using some bulk APIs to make to transform the data more readily. And one of the really important pieces in this process is making sure that the provenance is captured throughout the entire data flow. So what that means is that you are able to effectively track data from every single step of the journey to this final output, where you can then attach provenance and store it along with this data. And the integration that we get from here eventually feeds both bulk APIs and what we're calling FHIR bulk data analytics, which is effectively a SQL interface on top of FHIR. And anyone here can try this out on our website, where you can just type in FHIR analytics and it'll probably be the first link. But basically, we've preloaded millions of, hundreds of millions of resources, 300 million resources that are synthetic data on our website, but we're doing this with other health plans and health systems, where we're taking hundreds of millions of resources, loading it into transforming it via our data processors, and then running pushing it into an analytics environment so that these organizations can run queries and aggregations as they would wish. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to really pull together claims and clinical data in single queries across millions of resources in a way that you couldn't really do directly on FHIR. So with FHIR, traditional FHIR APIs, yes, you have kind of these, approximations of joins and aggregations through include and rev include and other stuff like that, but you don't really have a tabular approach to it where you can join and aggregate kind of on your whim across multiple resources at a time. So in this sort of SQL environment on bulk data, you can take data from 4 or 5 different FHIR resources and combine them in a way so that you could do something like, tell me all my patients between the ages of 13 and 18 that have gotten this, in these 3 immunizations in the past year, and order them by the doctor, the primary care physician that by the count of patients per primary care physician. And with something like that, you're joining practitioners, you're joining patients, you're joining immunizations together so that you can rank order which providers that you want to speak to, so that you can talk to them about their patient population so that they can make sure that they get their childhood immunizations. And what we're seeing is that a bunch of different health plans and providers have different cuts of the data. The health plan may have all of their information, which may be a subset of what the provider has, and this provider has certain data which another provider doesn't have. And by kind of joining those different data sets together, the claims and clinical, you're really creating this environment where actually what's happening to the patient, not just from one lens, but kind of across the board. And we're basically using FHIR bulk data, we're taking data, transforming it into FHIR, enabling access to it via FHIR bulk data APIs, typing it into the SQL Analytics environment, and then enabling organizations to start interacting with that at scale. And I think that is a space, for anyone building applications or analytics on this call. I think the biggest opportunities are lying at this intersection of payer, claims data and provider clinical data at the population level. And then, finally, what we're seeing is that these organizations, they're running analytics on this claims and clinical data, whether it's the payer doing it on behalf of the provider or the provider doing it on a subset of their, population that they feel like is at risk. What they're doing is they're running these analytics, and then they need to communicate this back to providers. So either they're building, smart on FHIR apps, or working with smart on FHIR apps that like we have that allow them to surface certain information back to the provider. And that's really the key here, because you can run all the analytics that you want day in and day out, but if you're not enabling the care team to really take that data and present it to the patient or take action on it, then you're not really kind of benefiting from this work that you're doing to analyze the information. So it's really a key here to take those analytics that you're doing in bulk and piping it back into the people, either the patient or the providers or the others in the care team, family members, so that they can actually take action on it. And then I'm going to run through this quickly because there are a couple questions that we have. But basically, I think this is kind of creating a new class of applications where you're not just an app that's running in the EHR against clinical data. You're not just map running on the patient's phone looking at an individual. You're really looking at claims, clinical, at the patient level, at the population level, and helping kind of make sense of the data that is between these different players in the industry. So I think, again, if you guys are on the call building applications in this industry, I think this kind of intersection is really the most interesting one, with both the most opportunity and the least competition. And then, finally, what we're seeing is the claims and clinical data that's coming together is also being further bolstered by the new payer-to-payer APIs, where payers are required to share clinical data with other payers. And they have to meet these regulations, but now it's creating a bunch of opportunity to connect to other payers and actually get this data into your own walls. If you're a health plan that may be transitioning a patient from a previous plan to yours. So you can connect all this data, but also request and ingest it from other organizations. And that requires you basically to be able to select a plan, search for it, match members, and also pull in the data into your own environment, which is often claims data, clinical data that's required for the payer-to-payer APIs, but ultimately you have to combine that with your claims data. And most plans that we're hearing from really want to do this in bulk using some sort of SQL analytics, so that they don't have to write all kinds of application logic to allow FHIR APIs to do the work. And I think one point that I didn't point out in this is that this isn't using like a schema particularly, it's using FHIR. So all the traversing of different data is via the FHIR APIs. So there are a few questions. So what version of FHIR is the resource available, and what is the process of getting this resource implemented in the FHIR spec? So basically, the integrations that we're doing are largely R4, but our FHIR server supports DST2, DST3, and R4. And then, getting the data into the FHIR spec via something like this does require a considerable amount of work if it's not already in FHIR today. So it's just people having to do the work to interact with it. So another question I just got are we using CQL Analytics? So we are not using CQL today. We still feel like there's a little bit of debate there, but effectively a CQL, translator can be built on top of the SQL APIs that we have today to support all kinds of analytics that CQL does. And we're doing this at scale. Like, you guys should go on our website and run that query. And you'll see that, across literally hundreds of millions of resources, that query runs in seconds, which is pretty interesting. Do we have real life use cases where you get bulk data from EHRs, and how is that integration like? So yeah, the reality is that we're not getting bulk directly from the EHRs. We're taking FHIR either from the EHRs or from the health plans, one resource at a time, and then we're enabling bulk on top of our APIs for our apps and other applications. Last question, which I know we're out of time, is does your product have pipelines to ingest clinical data from EHRs and claims data from payers as FHIR? Yeah, so yeah, that is what we do. Basically, yeah, we can get clinical data from either FHIR APIs or claim data from FHIR APIs, or most cases HL7 interfaces or CCDAs or other kind of proprietary data stores that organizations have. And then we pipe that into our FHIR server, which then has streams out to different data stores for different query access patterns. One of them, which is the SQL interface on top, connected to the data in the FHIR server. So that's kind of the high level architecture. And I know we're over time, But thank you guys for the questions. If you have further questions, I'm Ricky at oneup.health, and we look forward to working with you guys. Feel free to get connected to these APIs for free. They're required to be for free for the health plans. So we're happy to support any integrations that you guys have with health plans in the future or with other apps that you guys are building today. All right, thanks.
Well, nicely done, Ricky. Thank you so much for your presentation. And thanks everyone for joining us today. Please don't forget to rate the session. And this is Sadhana Alangar, HL7's Director of Education, signing off. Bye, everyone. Bye, Ricky. Thanks again.
Hey, guys.